despite his displeasure with us doing so, we aggregate from the Zach Lowe machine, baby. We're going back to his content. We're talking about where Zach Lowe has the Hornets in his Eastern Conference tier list. And then, for the first time in a while, we answer some Sicko Satchel questions. Honestly, just bombard us with questions because now it's silly season and we need a whole lot of silly season Sicko Satchel questions. All of it coming up today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. And that includes YouTube, where you can find Doug Branson hosting alongside myself. He's also hosting for everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's also hosting, it is true, I don't say any lies, Locked On NBA alongside Matt Moore and Hayes there as well. He's all over the place. Doug Branson is on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. You know, I was listening to a Zach Lowe pod the other day, as all basketball potters do, and he discussed aggregation on his podcast. He doesn't do it nearly as much as Brian Windhorst does. Brian does not like aggregation, right? Is not a fan of it. Zach understands it, but what was funny is he was discussing it. It's not like he had any crazy issues with it. It's just he wants it done responsibly, which that I can understand. But when he was talking about something having been aggregated without any context around it, he was referencing the Cam Thomas back and forth, where Zach Lowe was sharing some opinions around the league on Cam, and then Cam went at Zach saying, bleep you and all of this stuff. Anyways, I was thinking, you know what? Probably going to aggregate something from this pod. Probably going to do it. If we're going to be that podcast. We raise our hand high. Doug, you're shaking your head. Is it because if you do it right, then aggregation is quite good for people?
If you do it at all, it's good for these people. Are famous because people aggregated them, because people talked about them, because people shared their articles. Yes, some people do it irresponsibly. That's the devil's bargain that we made when we all decided that social media was the way that we were going to platform ourselves and grow our brands. But that's the deal that they made. I roll my eyes as hard as I can. I roll them so hard they just roll off of my eye sockets and onto the floor. And I did this when Jake Fisher started a podcast called "Please Don't Aggregate Me."
I do love it though. I love the I love the name, but yeah,
it's like please aggregate me. I beg you. Even if you do it wrong, even if you completely misinterpret what I say, aggregate me. You know why? Because you're sharing my work, because you're sharing me, because you're talking about me, and I'll come in and correct you if you're wrong. But the last thing that I want you to do is stop talking about me. It's just so like, oh, don't aggregate me. It's just like, get out of here, man.
No. We've been aggregated before, and by we, I mean really me. And I remember this from a few years ago when it was wrong, and I forget what the article was, but one of the articles said, like, basically I had sources that the Hornets were going after DeAndre Ayton. And I was coming in, no. That did not. I don't have anything, folks. The Hornets were not going after DeAndre Ayton, but they didn't share. The thing is, they didn't share a link to the podcast. They didn't do anything of the sort. They just said that Locked On Hornets Walker Mail said this, and then all it does is it gets people like, oh, okay, interesting, or they're mad at you, or that the trade didn't even work. Like you couldn't even run it through the trade machine. What I was proposing, anyways. Like I'll let, if you want them to aggregate you in an inaccurate way, go ahead and do it. I didn't like that experience, and it was only like one time it ever happened to me, and I still didn't like it.
But what's the alternative to that? I don't want to make the whole show this. I've done this rant many times before. I know that we get new listeners all the time, and we certainly have a lot of new listeners now, but I feel like I do this a couple of times a year. But what's the alternative? The alternative is they don't mention you at all. They don't talk about you. They don't do anything. Like, it's all a balance of things, right? Like, if people know you and they consider you a person that knows about a team and they want to share your work, you're going to get a group of people who do it responsibly, and you're going to get a group of people, man, hitting my mic, I'm getting so passionate. You're going to get a group of people who do it irresponsibly. But those things live in the same world. You don't get the one good thing without the other bad thing that you do have to do some work. This to me is all about laziness. It's about like these people not wanting to go in and say, like, this is not what I said. This is actually what I said. And, you know, look, you got to take the good with the bad.
That's gaslighting. It's actually their fault. First, that's the fundamental difference. I'm telling you, like, what is genuine to me, I would rather you not talk about me than misrepresent what I said.
That's absurd.
I know.
That's
I know.
insane.
Well, like I'm still waiting for the good part of the aggregation. Like, okay, I got the bad. All right, let's balance the scales.
The good part is everyone that listens
later.
to you and considers you an expert on the subject. And the vast majority, and this is the whole problem with social media. This is the whole problem with social media is that, particularly if you're someone that produces work that gets talked about on social media, you'll look at the one person that says something weird and then extrapolate that and say, oh, everybody's doing that. No, not everybody's doing that. That one silly person on social media is doing that, and you're getting all in a tizzy about it, when in reality, 99% of the people are still think you're an expert and are sharing your work responsibly. So quit complaining about it.
I'm pro aggregation, baby. I am. I
Please,
really,
me too.
Really,
please aggregate me.
Really want you to do it responsibly. Aggregators, mount up. All right, we're about to. Zach Lowe. He dropped his tier list in the Eastern Conference. Charlotte Hornets Reddit tweeted out the clip of him talking about Charlotte with Michael Pina, both of the Ringer Network. And here's what Zach Lowe had to say about the bottom tiers list. The Hornets are in it, along with Washington and along with Brooklyn. Those are the three teams in the bottom tier list: Washington, Brooklyn, Charlotte. Here's what he says. Charlotte's the most interesting of those three teams. Could they get to 37 wins kind of upside if they had any center that I would like to give NBA minutes to? With apologies to Moussa Diabate, you better, Zach, who hustles, gets lots of rebounds, and is good in a bit role. And any roadmap that I could see anywhere to them not having one of the 8 worst defenses in the NBA, I just see no pathway for them to be a competent defense at all. And I think they are still looking at the long lens. Doug, I think a lot of that is accurate. I don't know what is inaccurate from everything that he said there. And to be fair to Zach, so I get this as accurate as possible, I have not listened to the entire clip of him talking about the Hornets. I am just reading what I saw from Charlotte Hornets Reddit and also listening to that clip. All that to say, the only thing I feel like I might be a little higher on than other people, smart basketball people, I think you can win with Moussa. I think you can do some stuff. No, I don't want him to be the starting center for my franchise that for the long term. Like, if you can upgrade at center, you should absolutely do it. I'm not saying I want him to be the playoff starting center. I think at the end of this upcoming season, people are going to look back at Moussa's year and say, you know what? I was probably a little lower on him than I should have been. That's where I am with Moussa. I don't think that he's going to be a starting caliber center for a playoff team. I think at the end of this upcoming year, they're going to look back and say, Moussa, I think was just good. And like not the worst ever option to get 25 minutes per game at that starting spot. That's how I feel about Moussa. Other than that, yeah, it's hard to argue with a lot of what Zach said here, Doug.
No, so I think actually if Moussa does that, people should look back on it and go, I was as low on Moussa as I should have been, and he exceeded all of those expectations. And I'll say the same thing.
Also fair.
I'll say the same thing for the defense take on Zach Lowe. I think when you look at this roster, you're going to see a lot of offensive players that I think have size to play defense, but maybe not skill to play defense. I think they have willingness to play defense, but maybe not the sort of experience defensively that you would want from players that you would say, okay, yes, this can be an even average defense. And so I think if people look back on the Hornets season and say, wow, I can't believe they were 15th in the league in defense, they're going to say, I was exactly where I should have been on them defensively, and they overachieved. And they did that because they built a roster full of guys who all wanted to play on both ends of the floor, who bought into what Charles Lee was selling. And Charles Lee is a good defensive coach. Like, that's what we'll say. And they stayed healthy. I mean, that's the obvious That's the obvious thing here.
The theme of our show's existence, if they stay healthy. That should be the name of our pod. Jake Fisher has Please Don't Aggregate This. Our pod is Locked On If They Stay Healthy.
I think that most of the tier lists that you're going to see are going to have the Charlotte Hornets in the tank or lottery tier, but they're all going to make some comment of like, they kind of belong here and they kind of don't belong here. They're sort of teeter-tottering on the edge of the, and I would put them right above the lottery bound and put them into like the play-in possible tier. And I would say, like, if I could create just a single tier for the Charlotte Hornets that's even in between those two categories, and I would call it like kid who's just tall enough to get on the roller coaster, like just at the line of this tall to get on the roller coaster. Finally, it's taken a while, but now this team can get on the roller coaster. And the question is, once the team is on the roller coaster, do they barf? Or do they hang in there? And that's what we're going to be watching this season.
So you're saying the Charlotte Hornets are me at Kings Island finally being able to ride the beast for the first time. Oh, exactly. Boy. And you talk about excited. They had to bring somebody else in and just make sure they had to level it out. If you're watching on YouTube, they got to a level playing field. I probably was like,
there's like six people standing around you, double checking it.
Are you getting is that a centimeter?
There's a lawyer. There's like an insurance lawyer signing off on it.
Fine, let the kid ride the beast. And I didn't hurl, baby. I was hands
you
up.
Kept it up. Oh, congratulations.
Hornets,
kept the cookies in.
Be like me riding the beast for the first time. All right, still to come here on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Beast everywhere!
ESPN, they put out a list of the worst mistake each NBA team has made. What was it, over the last decade, Doug? Is that right?
Yeah, well, of this decade, 2020s.
Of this decade. So really the last 5 years. What is the worst mistake the Hornets have made over the last 5 years? We'll get to it coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game Time?
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB as well, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming Major League Baseball game. And so you can check out maybe around this area, some Braves games going on. Go to Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Worst mistake. Sheryl Crow song, right? Yeah, no, favorite mistake. Sorry, Cheryl. It's favorite mistake. I don't know if this one is going to be people's favorite mistake, Doug, but ESPN describes it as the worst mistake. Share with the people what ESPN said it was.
Yeah, so since 2020, the worst mistake that the franchise has made, and they rank, I guess these are in tiers as well, and so this would be the best tier to be in because it's a reverse ranking, right? So it's not the worst of the worst. It's actually the best of the worst tier, and it's 25th, and it's signing Gordon Hayward for 4 years, $120 million. ESPN writes, the Hornets aren't typically big spenders in free agency. Yeah, no kidding. But they made a sizable splash with a sign and trade in 2020. In 6 off seasons this decade, only 2 free agents have signed for more money while changing teams than Hayward, and that's Paul George to Philadelphia and Fred VanVleet to Houston. But as Hayward's health deteriorated, he fell short of the Hornets' expectations. Yeah, no kidding. The veteran wing played in just 59% of Charlotte's games while he was on the roster, and his production declined every year. Charlotte never made the playoffs with Hayward, and he was inactive for both of the Hornets' play-in games during that span. That made me laugh when I read it the first time, and it made me laugh again when I read it here, that he didn't play in either of the blowouts that they experienced in the play-ins after they paid him $120 million. Amazing.
Yeah, not me. Not his fault. So I don't know how you say It was the worst mistake when it wasn't even his fault. Plus, got us Trey Mann. So how bad could it really be?
Well, that's not his doing. That's totally the Schlotkin and
Schlotkin.
Sam Presti getting weird.
That's the Schlotkin. I don't think this is the worst mistake of the last 5 years. I think you could break it down to either the all-encompassing 2021 NBA draft, or you could just say the one move of trading back up into the first round to go get Kai Jones. So I would even say, just because I'm a little more lenient on individual draft busts, because it happens to everybody. If it happens continuously, obviously it's an issue. But if you just have like a one-off of a draft bust, which there hasn't been many, to be fair, for the Hornets in the last 5 years, right? You're talking about LaMelo being drafted within the last 5 years. You're talking about Brandon Miller, and that was the hot debate between he and Scoot. Like, there was some real decision-making going on there, and it seems like they took the right guy in Brandon Miller. So, okay, if we're going with a one-off, you take James Bouknight. He kind of falls. He's exciting. It's not like it was the crazy selection. Cool. Trading back up into the first for Kai Jones, that's where this goes to from a terrible draft to an all-time unmitigated disaster. Trading up for Kai allows that to get to the unmitigated disaster part. Yeah. And you know my whole thing about this, people were excited about the protections on the deal. Yes, it's true. I'm glad we never outright lost the pick, except that you never had control of the pick, which means that you were never going to truly be in the market with some of these other Eastern Conference teams that were looking to go after a Donovan Mitchell or a whoever, because you could only offer so many picks compared to those other franchises that had all of their picks to offer. Charlotte didn't, and that matters. That's the swing factor in being able to pull off some of these deals. The worst mistake to me the Hornets have made in the last 5 years is trading back up into a top 20 slot to go get a guy, not own your pick for the next 3-4 years, and that guy not do anything of note outside of dunking on Wemby in Summer League, didn't do anything of note for your regular season team.
No, that's a bad one. That's a great candidate. I think I think there's obvious reasons why that is not ranked here, because the Gordon Hayward thing, it's the bigger name, it's the more high profile thing, it's the thing that is not it's not hard to track. It's not hard to sort of like look at the things and see where it all. Whereas like you would have to follow Bouknight, you have to follow Kai Jones, and then see the domino effects when you miss not on a draft pick, but when you miss on an entire draft where you gave up assets. That's going to be difficult. Also, like, people are looking at this trade that the Pelicans made with the Hawks this season, and they're going like, "Whoa!" And so people are going to keep their eyes on how that all unfolds for the Pelicans, and that might be their biggest mistake. But what the Pelicans gave up to move up to get Derek Queen, but nobody thought that when the Hornets did that for Kai Jones. No one was looking at that like, that's ridiculous.
People had him as the best team. Oh, people loved it. Like national pundits. You and I did a show together. You and I, we felt like haters. We were lukewarm on it. I'm like, okay. I think we were both Jalen Johnson fans. I was Zaire Williams, but he wasn't even available. So that just to not absolve myself of, I didn't get anything wrong. No, I got something very wrong. But of the players that were available for the Hornets to pick, you and I were both Jalen Johnson guys in that moment. And I liked Keon Johnson too, I think. I just remember us not being huge fans of it. But when you would go to ESPN and then you would see winners and losers, Hornets were always in the winners of all of these outlets, grading how the draft turned out. Last thing I'll say about Gordon as to why I don't think it was the worst mistake. I do think when he was on the court, there was some good stuff with LaMelo. Like he allowed LaMelo to do what he needed to do in being the connector, being on the wing. We'd get frustrated with the lack of aggression from Gordon, but I think that allowed LaMelo to do some stuff himself, and it helped the team get to 4 games above 500, which is no small feat around here. Yeah, clearly not a good move. Wouldn't do it again. I don't think it's the worst move of the last 5-6 years. No,
look, I mean, he didn't play in either of the play-in games, but he was responsible for some portion of them getting to a play-in game, which they haven't done since. So in that way, and there was one season where he was one of the only efficient offensive basketball players that the Hornets could depend on, and had a good 3-point shooting year one year when everybody else was not shooting the basketball very well. So yeah, I mean, he contributed, but obviously the 4 years, $120 million. I don't think it's the biggest mistake either, but I also don't think it's the draft, the 21 draft. I think the biggest mistake is that the Hornets drafted LaMelo Ball, got a rookie of the year, and then decided, we're just going to keep developing youth and hope something good happens. Instead of saying, wow, we have a treasure here, something the Hornets just never get. Let's go ahead and invest anything and everything necessary to building a culture around him that can sort of get him in that mindset of being a two-way player. You're starting to see that happen now, but it's so late in the game. Like, they should have been focused on doing that immediately, and also reshuffling veterans, continuing to bring in veterans, continuing to bring in depth instead of leaving that 15th roster space open. It's just so many things that are happening right now illuminate all of the mistakes by inaction. That people often think of mistakes as something you do, you take an action, which is like this Gordon Hayward 4 year, $120 million. They think doing something and it turning out bad is a mistake. Sometimes the negative mistake, the inaction, is the biggest mistake, particularly when you have someone as dynamic, creative, awesome as LaMelo Ball, and you wasted that opportunity.
So this is impacted by the Gordon Hayward signing, I would say, too, though, right? I think because that was such a bleeped up year with COVID, LaMelo, God, was that draft in early November or late October? It was wild. No summer league. You got to get LaMelo up to speed as quickly as possible. And after they drafted LaMelo, they go out and get Gordon Hayward. Those two moves, they might have been one after another, if I'm not mistaken. You had the draft, and then they went out and got Gordon Hayward. And I think some of that was to go get an all-star. I don't know if he made an all-NBA level or team, but to go get an all-star, take the risk of the injury history, pay him more, which is why he came here. There were some rumblings about him going back home to Indiana, but Charlotte had to pay more, and that's what they did. And then say, okay, we got a top 3 pick. We think LaMelo's the guy. We're going to go after Gordon Hayward. And then the injuries happen because you made a bet and you lost on it. Like, well, then they quit. So that's my issue. They could. You're right. It did impact it, but it could have impacted it in the other way. They just quit. They said, all right, that didn't work out. Now, instead of going to try to unwind that and refigure it out, they said, we're going to lean on draft. We're going to hope that something happens here and somebody pops off. And they just quit on the process. And that goes to a larger thing of Michael Jordan, I think, falling out of love with owning a basketball team, falling in love with owning a NASCAR team and wanting to do that thing and go race cars around a circle. Like, it all is of the same thing. And I'm just, I can get mad about that, but instead I'm just going to transition all of that anger and say I'm just so happy that we live in the world that we live in right now, and the ownership group that we have now, and the general management and front office that we have now, that just is of such a different mindset. It's amazing. Do you think that those guys were in the draft room, or maybe in the free agency room? It was Michael Jordan and it was Mitch Kupchak, and then Michael is staring off in the distance and he's hearing Charlie Brown parents want, and then at the end he hears, "What do you think, Michael?" "Oh no, yeah, I think we should sign Bubba Wallace."
No, I think Michael was playing NASCAR 95 paintball mode. Racing, completely turning around, just shooting cars with paintballs. It's like, Michael, we need you to focus up here.
Okay, after I finish this Dirt to Daytona series, I promise. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
I'm just glad they only went back 5 years. I thought we were going to have to relive some terrible moments.
Oh, boy.
Thank you, ESPN, for only going back a half
You
decade.
think it was bad when Michael wasn't paying attention. Let me tell you about when Michael was paying attention.
I don't know, guys. This Bismack Biyombo, he is the real deal. What about Kimba? We can use a second pick on him. But Biyombo, that's who we need to target. All right, coming up next, we have Sicko Satchel questions to get to. Locked On Hornets. It's been a while since we've rummaged. I feel like we're going to do a lot of rummaging here in silly season. So let's lead off with the first question of the day. What you got, Doug?
Davis of the 8th Bismack Brigade asks this: what are some of the ways the Hornets can combat the center problem? Do you think we will see more small ball guard lineups with Miles Bridges and Grant Williams at the 5. I love this question. What do we do about it? Because we've talked endlessly about the fact, as Zach Lowe said, they don't have a starting caliber center on the roster. What do we do about it?
I think small ball 5 with Grant Williams. I think punish the other team offensively by stretching them out and really putting some pressure on non-mobile bigs that are out there because they are so tall. Now, when you run into the unicorns, that's where it's going to get tricky. This is where it gets hard. But the non-mobile bigs, the rim protectors, maybe the Jarrett Allens of the world, if you will, who's valuable, but if you can stretch him out, he becomes less valuable. So just punishing these teams on offense, hitting your threes, Grant Williams stretching them out, creating driving lanes for LaMelo and these other guards to get to the paint. This is where Colin Sexton can come in and maybe cause some damage in that regard too. And then Musa just tiring him out. If Musa's your guy, run down the floor just 100% of the time, 110% motor, rim running. Oh, you think you have your offensive rebound. You think you have your rebound. I'm going to poke the basketball away. I'm going to be a pest, even if I'm only like 6'9" out there. Those are some of the ways that I think you combat the lack of center depth that you have on this team. And pick and rolls and stuff, maybe you have some lead passes to Musa where he just beats his big to the paint if you run those pick and rolls high. Those are some ways that I think you could combat the lack of size.
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas on defense because I think it's going to hurt them more on defense than it will on the offensive end of the floor. On defense, and I'll go to something you said there, Walker. You're going to have to score. You're going to have to outscore teams, but particularly you're going to have to get off to good starts. Because I think if you outscore teams in the early phases of the game, you will get them to play outside of the way they want to play offensively. And a lot of times playing with pace will do that as well. You'll get teams to play a different style. Indiana was great at this. Indiana was great at causing chaos, both offensively and defensively. Like, I would not say that Indiana had the greatest backline defense and totally structured to do all of that, but they turned you over a lot, which I think the Hornets are going to have to do. The guards, the MIGs, the most important guy is going to be the guy on the ball and causing chaos up front. That's what you're going to have to do. So Colin Sexton, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, they're going to have to get hands in passing lanes. They're going to have to play up a little bit and then hope for the best. You're going to have to junk it up a little bit. You're probably going to see some zone this year. You're switching as much as you can. Again, you're trying to keep them away from the rim because you don't have a lot of rim protection back there, and then everybody's going to have to rebound. I think you're going to hear that a lot from Charles Lee. Like, the responsibility to rebound is not going to be exclusively on Kalkbrenner, on Musa, who is a good rebounder, or on Mason Plumlee. It's got to be everybody. That's why you got to love the Con Knippel and Liam McNeely, by the way. You saw him coming out of nowhere to grab rebounds. Colin Sexton will do the same thing. LaMelo Ball needs to return to that. We saw that he loved to go and steal rebounds from centers early in his career. He stopped doing that, and I don't know what that's a function of, but now he needs to be given license to steal. Like, go ahead and steal every rebound you possibly can because the Hornets are going to need a gang rebound.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook style, baby. Just go get all of them. Yeah, a lot of that's coaching decision stuff. Do you want to attack the glass or do you want to get back on defense? Those are some of the things that you're going to have to figure out if you're Charles Lee. All right, what else you got?
Hallie of the 12th Dwight Howard division. This is a long one, so buckle in.
Okay, I'm listening.
Reading the interview with Charles Lee that was on the Charlotte Observer, I believe a couple weeks ago, and thinking about what he said about building a roster with healthy internal competition and how you said we may eventually have to let go of some of the players who help build the new culture. I think it will be easier to see players we drafted or traded for early in their careers move on when the team has actually made an effort to develop them. All the sickos, including me, are curious to see what happens with NSJ, for example. And it seems like we can safely assume he has the start of the season to prove himself, otherwise he'll likely end up in a deal, right? That feels fair to me. Even if I like him and would prefer to keep him, I feel better about how he's been treated than, say, James Bouknight was, and feel that he was given a fair chance by the new regime. He's been in Vegas with them, obviously included in the team. And then there's some stuff on Okogie that is obviously moot because Okogie got released. And then my Sicko Satchel question is this. Which player combos do you think will work well, and are you excited to see? We've seen glimpses of some interesting rookie combos in Summer League. Between that and hearing Lee talk about LaMelo's development and Sexton embracing being a Hornet, sounds like we're in for some good ball movement and creativity. I'm interested to see how Plumlee will look with such a different Hornets roster. Maybe some Plum Dog millionaire Trey Mann two-man game develops.
Okay. Going through all of that. I don't know if NSJ makes it to the beginning of the season.
Probably not.
Seems like a likely cut candidate. But in the spirit of that comment, developing these guys, giving them a fair shot, and then moving on, I do think that happened with Nick Smith Jr. I think he got run last year. I think this coaching staff went in with the idea of giving him every opportunity possible to prove himself. And I think there are some moments he deserves to be in the NBA somewhere. Like I think, and he works hard and all that stuff. So I don't think he makes it to the beginning of the season. So there's that. Player combos, if that's the other Sicko Satchel question. One that comes to mind immediately, Con Knipple and almost everyone. I think he's going to be such a malleable player that like you could just play him with anybody in the backcourt. Maybe I'd rather have a tried and true legit ball handler out there with them in case they're just smothering Con. So maybe a Colin Sexton Con Knipple pairing isn't the best backcourt pairing that we have to offer here in Charlotte, but like a Con and Trey, yeah, baby, second unit, would like to see that. That would be fun. Con and LaMelo, of course, we'd love to see that. That's why they drafted him. They said as much in the Keith Smith anonymous front office exec article. If you're going to the front court, a point I was going to make with the lack of size comment that we got in the previous question here, Doug, if Ryan Kalkbrenner can be can you be a 32% 3-point shooter? Can we touch that number? Because if Kalkbrenner can do that with the underwhelming rebounding numbers, but still the size, then maybe Kalkbrenner and Moussa Diabate could be out there. Could you experiment with that defensively and actually, like, offensively it might be rough, but if Kalkbrenner can shoot, then maybe that can be a thing. I don't think that's going to be as much of a thing Kalkbrenner's rookie season, but like, can we get there maybe his second year, depending on what happens with Moussa? Just something to keep an eye on. I think
we saw that in Summer League, by the way. We saw Salon, Kalkbrenner pick and rolls, and Salon was able to make the pass over the top to Kalkbrenner for a dunk. I don't think we're going to see it on the NBA level right away, but right. They were experimenting with that in Summer League at least.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the beauty of this, though, right? Is that the roster they put together, it's really guard heavy. You are not very tall. All of those problems that we've documented for the last 3 weeks since they've been making these moves. That said, I think there's not a lot of bad pairings with the guards, in my opinion. Like there are some better than others, but I don't think there's a ton of really bad pairings when you're talking about all these guards that they went out and signed.
I think we're gonna have to wait and see a little bit. There's so many new players, and there's so much experimentation that can happen, and so many possibilities for Charles Lee as a young head coach to develop a style and develop something. And again, I go back to Indiana again, where they developed chaos and the players that they had allowed them to develop that chaos. And so I think that's what you're going to see with the Hornets this season, the beginnings of that experimentation and developing a style. Like they've really focused in on Hornets DNA. But the next level of that is like, now we have to figure out this. I'm going to go back to a Steve Cliffordism here. We have to figure out a way to play that gives us the best opportunity to win. And so that's what's exciting to me. And I don't have a firm answer on like what these pairings are going to be, because I think we have to see that play out a little bit in preseason, and then at the beginning of the regular season, they're going to find out a lot of stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, with the NSJ thing, Hornets fans, we've seen a lot of players not come in with the right attitude, or not come in with the right mentality, or not come in with the right game, or the right like ability, like Noah Vonleh, just not knowing how to play NBA basketball. We're used to that, and those players washing out. What we're less used to is the organization filling its coffers with NBA level players that young players have to compete against, and then falling short of that, not because they have some personal failing, not because they have some like inherent skill failing that they couldn't overcome, but that simply the opportunity wasn't right and they had to go somewhere else. That happens all the time to the Lakers and the Celtics and all the contenders of the world. That happens all the time. I listen to these podcasts and they talk about, yeah, this player was pretty good, but just the opportunity wasn't there. He's going to have to go be successful somewhere else. That's what the Hornets are now that's a situation that they're going to find themselves in more and more. And so we got to get used to that, but it's going to feel wrong until it feels right.
Yeah, and Nick Smith Jr., I think that's well put. I think Nick Smith Jr. did come in with the right attitude. I think he did really try on defense.
Yes.
I've had a chance to talk with him. I really enjoyed Nick Smith Jr. in some of my talks with him. There was one particularly long-form interview I did with him. Long-form, it was like 15, 20 minutes, but it was good. No, it was a good back and forth.
I'm going to aggregate it, don't worry.
I'm sure I misrepresent it. Yeah. Walker says Nick Smith Jr. sucks. Kick him off the team. No, I didn't. Everything's fine. And Doug's like, yeah, baby. Yeah, we did. Come by and listen to Locked On Hornets. It's sad for Nick Smith Jr. here, but still deserves to be in the NBA somewhere. No doubt about that. And we'll see where he ends up. And maybe he does make it to the beginning of the season. I don't think so, but I wouldn't be crazy shocked if he found a way to do so. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also listen to Locked On NBA. Make that your second listen of the day with Matt Moore and Hayes. And I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., 92.7 FM. Also, Wes and Walker, anywhere you get your pods, WFNZ.com. Have a great weekend. By the way, next week, we got some news. We are going to move to 3 days a week next week. That's happening. So it's your team every day. That's still the mantra. And guys, largely we are, but for the next 6 weeks or so, maybe trickling into 7 weeks, we're going to be going to 3 days a week.
Well, we have to remind our families that we still exist. That's number one. Number two is that if you feel at all sad about not being able to hang with us every day, I would say thank you for being an everydayer. But also just know, particularly for the folks that have just joined and have been excited about hearing us every day, just know that when we go to 3 days a week, and I feel like the show becomes its best version of itself. We have a little bit of extra time to prepare and get silly and finish some projects that we've been working on for a very long time. So we don't say that we're going to 3 days a week in some kind of negative way. We say it in an exciting way of like, this is when the show becomes its best.
Like, yes, this is the time that I go on not Jermaine, but Jermaine Jones rabbit holes. This is that time. So, buddy, if that's not a tease, I don't know what is. So we'll be with you. I don't know what the schedule is going to be like. Maybe it's some kind of version of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Subscribe, turn your notifications on YouTube. That's the best way. A little thing pops up on your phone and says, The Hornet, Locked On Hornets is live.
All right, have a great weekend. We'll be back with you next week.